Hi, Kathy Vick, Deeply Awake, and I'm joining you on a really wonderful anniversary for yours truly. 2 years ago, I had a light experience that was physical, it was auditory, it had a vagal response to it, and would you look at the screen? And it was the most intense initiation that I'd had so far. I described it at the time. The event was channeled around. I was given information that I couldn't access consciously, which was very helpful and remains helpful. But, the question has been with this work, well, how do you live with that then? There's a maxim, once you know about something, you're responsible for it. It's just how it is. So, how do I take responsibility for this stuff? The vortexes and the light shows and the channeling that is just straight on, dead on. I mean, it seems to me that I had it backwards for a little while, and I had to kind of sync up. Ha! Isn't that funny? It was so important to me to see myself as a writer. I mean, because that's just what I am. It's just how I'm. But you know what? I was playing with that issues of identity or whatever, but just roll. Fair enough. I'd just come out of major surgery. I just had a very, very big change in my life. After years of application. Now what? That's a good question. And, from day to day, it's like my body can do new things. I can see now I've plateaued and I need to push myself again. And I'm so grateful that I get to see my physical therapist again, because now I really feel ready to push myself again. I feel safe in my body. I don't think anything's going to snap. Yay! But I identify my weaknesses, and I want to work on them. I want to get strong. I want to have symmetry, and I want to be strong in my body. Well, during this process, I've had to literally shift consciousness. That's what this has come down to. And I didn't really, I hinted around it, I guess, but I didn't really grok it until just recently. And it has been a very beautiful process. Very, very gentle, very benevolent, very beneficent, highly synchronous, and right on time. Everything just is right on time. And I realized that I was, once again, I find myself in no time. And I used to just long to be in no time. That's all I wanted. And for me, no time is that I am not assigned anywhere. I have no one requires me to do anything. Mm-mm. And, after having a lifetime of serving others, I know the difference. I know when I'm being asked to sacrifice. I know when I am sacrificing. And you know what a sacrifice is? That's doing something out of the goodness of your heart, or out of patience, or out of love, and not pointing it out. If you point it out, then what's the point? It's showing up big and staying that way. And I couldn't do it. It was really hard for me to stay big. I've had a number of visions with my body and a lot of work with my body, and at one point I saw that I was like, my body was cut up, and it was like cut up and then put together again. And I saw that all of the exit strategies I had, they were abundant. And each and every one of them would have been understandable, believable, explainable, and it would have been its own set of, karmic dances of you feel this and I feel this and I have this and I'm not going to get this and all that. I saw all of it. And then I was in meditation, and my leg was down. I was lying on my bed, and my right leg was dangling from the bed. And I was in this state, and I was realizing how close death had been, how easy, in a way necessary, a transition has seemed to be since 2012. The near-death experiences, the altered states of consciousness, the visions, the channeling, all of it. How do I explain this? How do I come to peace with this? Add to the mix people in my immediate environment and those in the media who are deeply, deeply suspicious of this. What do I do now? Suddenly, the role writer wasn't big enough. And it had always been big enough. There is freedom in being a writer. I don't see freedom like that in any other art. Part scribe, certainly. It's a holy, holy, holy tradition. The part creator. Requiring that I keep my mind sovereign. Do what you will. I know who I am. Such a paradox. When I had trouble, what happens when, I lose my temper in a traffic jam? Or I fuck something up. Or I think I hurt someone's feelings and feel responsible. How do I reconcile this? There's 6 years of describing it, but really there's alongside that is this question: who am I? What am I? How can this be? And taking on feeling kind of bad about it because I didn't see anybody else like that, and people gave me shit about it. They always have, and I let them. That's the worst part. But you know what you know when you know it. Yes, I'm a writer. I have that. That's a gift that I have. This is one of my tribes. It's a tradition. It's very holy. Very ancient. Very important. And I am so surprised. I'm choking up about this, but part of what's been going on is this integration of my Akash that I didn't expect. I remember I've been going on Google Earth, and I remember. I know where the sites are before I click. I'm finding them intuitively. I remember. And it floods back when I look at pictures of monoliths. Whew, go Beckley Tepe. Huge, huge, huge downloads. And it's really marvelous, because that indeed is the marrying of flesh and star. You know? I can see it now a lot better. And I'd been given information about our ancient history since the 90s to the teachers. It was very important to me that I understand what happened. And it was very important to them that they explained to me what happened. And I've spent really the last over 20 years, 2 decades, trying to decide if what they told me was true or not. Isn't that something? I know it's true. So it's been sort of one of those implanted needs to figure something out that I was given. A story that I knew, I knew it was true when they told me, because I remembered it. And yet I never saw another, I never heard another person say that. And I only repeated it to one person, the person that I then married. I needed to know if he was going to be okay with that. And he was. For better or worse. So, it's like seeing some of these things. It's like, it's not like flipping a switch. Some of this has been the last about 3 weeks. There have been stair steps, and it's been like light switches have been on, and they can't be undone. It's like it's on the on position now, just like before in 2012, when I kept seeing a house that was in the dark, and then I turn on one light, and then I realized, oh, wait a minute, hold on here. There was tape, black electrical tape, that was like obsessively, compulsively put on this switch to put it in the off position. Who do I know who's that OCD? Well, that would be me. And then I saw that that's what the whole deal was just turn on the lights and see what you got. Go through it. I mean, I kept getting that. I kept documenting it. I kept writing about it, and they kept channeling about it. And it was like this theme that ran through, and it's like I didn't, especially when they came through and they were just going to go, we'd like to take over now. And they'd start writing. Like I've said, they would start with like, consider a toaster. It's like, what? How? What? And at that point, I would usually like vacate and just say, okay, there. I would just see my fingers, and then I'd be gone, because I have better things to do than wreck my reputation over as a writer over a toaster parable. Shit. I'll come back and look at it and decide. It always was like, whoa, what? That is beyond clever and beautiful. Oh, I always felt like I was getting, it was like Christmas, or like a birthday or something, I'd go away and I'd come home and there was a really nice gifty there. So that's what that was like. So, but there's been like this I don't know, this weird journey that's gone from Egypt. Totally enjoyed reacquainting myself with Egypt. That was very helpful. Very helpful indeed. Yep. And but that Sphinx. There were numbers that were keep coming through, and it was just like, you gotta listen to this, and just like really juxtaposed information with what I know to be true. Like everywhere around me, I'm being told one thing. Oh, it's 12,000 years old. No. try 36. That's old. And I don't know, when the Egypt was talking about, they talk about the first time. It is all got triggered when I learned about, because Thoth is a big deal for me. Big deal. And there was information about Thoth and just the nature of this reality. It's like, oh, I read the Emerald Tablets, but I didn't know you thought that too. Holy crap! And then I read about the Hermetic tradition. That's the teachers. This is. That's their deal. That's applied energetics. That's the study of coherence. All that's just boom right there. So I'm like, just feeling really great about this. Oh, I'm so smart. I got this all figured out. And then the questions come up. Well, how do I fit that external Merkaba into everything that the Martians did? Is that true? Was there a problem like that? I know it to be true. But if that's true, then we got to place it in time. Oh my. And then the work begins again. So whatever. In amongst all of this, I'm doing the physical stuff and really just focusing on where I'm going to position my consciousness. And while I am recuperating physically, I think that is extremely valid use of time and effort. Yes. So it's more of an integrated approach to reality, Well, I was a nurse. And, I have that privilege. I have that right. And it's not like I vacated the human plane. I have, it's a skill. It's not good for my soul, but it's a skill. Great. It's like poison to my soul, but all right, I could do that. Anymore. Just like, wow, I saw when this really got bad. I saw, and I got it. Yep. So I was, still am, whatever. Sure. But I was always a writer. Well, yeah. I can not trivialize it, but I don't know, monetize it and swank it up and get status from that. But for me, it's an ancient calling. It's an art, and it's an expression of reality. You're only as good as you are open, as you are non-judgmental, as you are experienced. Then you are a writer. Then you take your pen and then you discuss. Until then, you're amassing experience, and that is part of a writer's job. So that all made sense to me. And so I really identified with that. But then this other stuff kept coming through. How in Egypt the whole point of the Pharaoh's final attainment was to become a star. You know? And I realized I saw this birth of Christ consciousness in my, in my reality in late April of 2012. That's what that was. The birth of cosmic, Christic or Christic consciousness. And it took me like, that's what I'm realizing the last little bit of a walk, the last 2 months or so. This could not have happened anytime sooner. I think it was a pretty good idea to have waited. And I don't regret my impatience. I understand my impatience. But this was worth the wait. This is very gratifying. And this is permanent. These understandings are permanent. It's the culmination of a lot of work. So through the research that I've done and the work I've done, and I've done not enough, certainly not enough. But what I have come up with is that, you know, when you look at the whole picture of what I represent, what I'm able to do, what I have done, you know, mine is a profoundly shamanic experience. When I described what happened to me right afterwards, it happened Christmas Eve of 2012. I wrote about it, and somebody wrote back and said, that sounds just like an ayahuasca trip. And I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. A little seed was planted there. And then I did, you know, some further research on shaman and saw, and DMT and ayahuasca, which I've never done. And I look at it and think, of course, I mean, why wouldn't I want to do that? To induce that. But I can do that walking down the street. And that's how I live, and that's how I prefer to live. It's good for me to live that way. In ceremony. As a walking, living, breathing, bleeding prayer. In motion. But I didn't have a word for it. And I certainly didn't have a community. I didn't have a tradition. I thought I was an anomaly. And, you know, to some degree I am. Maybe I'm one of these who overproduces DMT. Or maybe, because of the position of my Akash and my age as a soul, or my awareness as a entity, or whatever. I'm hooked up, man. I'm hooked up. And I'm a human. And that makes me a shaman. Who writes? Isn't that nice? So that is a very comfortable place for me. And if I remember that, then everything else fades. There are certain responsibilities and certain rights and certain realities that are available to me when contemplating this as a reality and when realizing that it's indeed true. I mean, you can call me Saint Bridget, who goes into the broom closet and has visions and talks to Jesus and stuff. Sure, go ahead. Why not? That's one way of looking at it. Or you can see me as a yogi who, you know, can do unusual things from time to time, sometimes voluntarily. But none of those really work for me. I like shamanism. Mexican shamanism in particular. There is that's where I belong, because it's not appropriate to sanitize the all. It jams up the energy to sanitize it. But there really is this really, really super duper, I was getting it for like 3 weeks, but this is the time of a dimensional shift. There is a dimensional shift going on, like a highway. It's a big deal. And there are certain ways that you're just positioned. And I finally realized that this is for me a polarity thing. And so I had a vision. I'll end with this. I had a vision. I think it was, I don't know when it was, but it was a really, 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 really important one with Jesus. It was so beautiful. And there was the white light, the white like flame that's just like super intense that went all over my body, and then the visions began. And then at the end of it, they showed me this thing. They showed me there was a like something I couldn't see, and then there was a black ribbon and a white ribbon. And it was energy that was circle, 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 circle. And they were counterparts, you know, and it was just like, that's what it did. And then all of a sudden, there was this beautiful, brilliant white light. And so the white circly thing changed, and it just became this immense light. And then the stuff that had been black, that had been the counterpart, it kind of congealed, and it stood up, and it began to morph. And they said, look you. Resistance itself becomes self-aware. What happens when resistance becomes self-aware? That was the question. That, and how do I live with this? As a shaman, accepting the mantle. Pretty simple, pretty obvious. But cloaked in many layers of Akashic memory and significance, cultural programming, deep, deep grooves of belief. This is, I mean, there's no other way of looking at it but this. And anyone who thinks differently is insane. Well, alrighty then. Isn't it funny that it's just in the last, I don't know, 8 years? Just like we were told, right on cue. Here come the ancient sites. Now it's time. We weren't ready to see them before. We wouldn't have understood. We didn't have the imagination for it. There's just been a discovery of the biggest one yet. And it's like, I don't know, like 1,500 tons. I think that's commensurate with our imagination as a group now. Because there's a lot to come to terms with that has very little to do with Jesus and Muhammad and all these dudes. Speaking to the males. Okay. We're taking a leap, guys. So, yeah, we all knew about that. And I was really surprised. I really super was, because I realized, like, I think I finally verbalized it on the 20th of April. That's when the spell broke, energetically. It was weird. I suddenly was, like, back in my body. I suddenly was not hating. I had just been like in like this quivery fear, hate, anger thing, and I didn't even know it. And more and more and more and more I see what that is. And yesterday I declared with the sun. It was the culmination of 6 years of work. This all began with a really intense body meditation where I was this like golden white light. My body was. And in my pelvis was this like scrunchy, like steel wool ickiness, lines, black lines. And it was, I knew it was a galaxy. And I reached this fever pitch of, I remove it, remove it, remove it, remove it, remove it. This is not mine, this is not mine. Remove it, remove it, remove it. And phew, so many things happened after that. And then, and that was 2 years ago. And then yesterday it was just just a beautiful declaration, just realizing who I am, what I took on to understand and accomplish and love into myself and gain compassion toward others for. But it's over. It never was mine. It never was mine. And I don't have to take it up anymore. And I stood on that balcony and I could see it. It was being done. I could feel it. And I understood that is the lower agreement field. That's this low, slow consciousness. That is us functioning at a certain percentage of DNA that is not entirely clever. Not very illuminated. Okay. Well, that was fun. But some of us, the spell broke. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Now what? Well, luckily there's a lot of us. And we're banding together. Here and there and everywhere. And we have, especially those in the first wave, we've learned to what do you call that? Pass. How to blend in. But man, oh man, that was just really, that was really very uncomfortable for me the last little bit. I was so acutely aware of this darkness, so acutely aware of my resistance, so acutely aware of the physicality of that. Whoa. And I don't know, it was something about laying on that bed in that meditation, and I'm realizing my body really did get cut open and broken, cut. My bone was cut. And then there was this metal stuff tapped onto it and screwed into it, and it was put together again. And it was brought to my attention. Isn't that a lot like that Isis Osiris tale? How many times do you think you're going to scare yourself with this shit? You're immortal, dear. And I know that sounds really ridiculous. It sounded ridiculous to me because it's like, well, yeah, I have a physical body, so come on now. But that statement implies that the physical body is designed to break. It's really not. It's not designed really to. It'll comply. And I think the question is, what is the effect on a human body when the DNA quotient goes up and the human body remains the same? Because they're usually they're physical changes. So that's interesting. Well, we'll see. A lot of these things are, as far as the ancient stuff goes, you got to figure that out on your own, or ask me a question. But I'm not going to give any of that away. And maybe that's wrong. But I think just figuring out where you're from in the cosmos, figuring out our human history, figuring out, your energetic signature. It's just not something that somebody else should presume to do. And so I will say that I think that there is enough evidence to support that there was a megalithic culture that was that could see the earth and project its consciousness into the earth, into particular sites. And then the fun is, picking the site and doing it, and doing these megaliths, because, as far as scale goes, they were just larger people. So, and part of the fun is that, you're going to get littler, because there's going to be a devolution, unfortunately. It's unfortunate. But hey, what is huge to us might not have been quite so huge to them. Big. Impressive. But yeah, I see that. And it's just like, here's the proof. Yeah, we're probably a little bit bigger in the old times. And then there was that Ice Age thing. But, there were other things that happened too. And it changed the experiment a little bit. Oh well. Here we are with megaliths staring at us. Oh, they are so big and we are so little. Oh my goodness, it must have been aliens. Well, kinda. There's just a lot to discover. But it's something that you got to discover for yourself. Just like your journey with God. I think it's pretty gross to have somebody say, hey, this is how you should do God. And if you don't do it this way, you're doing it wrong. What a dumb thing to say. Oh my God. What a shallow person. What a shallow understanding of Creator. But, oh well, such is life. So, I guess part of this was just deciding that what I should own and what I should apologize for. Might have noticed that. And I felt like apologizing for a lot. My existent most of all. And that's luckily overpassed. So that was then. That was helpful. That was understandable. That was the natal chart. That was the expression. That was the personality structure. That was the setup. That was the agreement. That was the fun. The creativity was the resistance. What happens when resistance becomes self-aware? What happens when you can no longer argue with yourself? What I am noticing is that I've gotten it so strong. It's not for me to educate, speak to, cajole, nurse, feel responsible for, or convert. Darkness. Decisions that are bankrupt of compassion. I'm just not seeing the whole picture. That's always the point. So, it requires a more unified field of thought. Getting to see the other guy's point of view is valid and whole and true for them. And beautiful. But if at odds, then what? And, for a lifetime, I think I made excuses for who and what I was rather than celebrating it. I don't exactly know why that is. Well, I know, but what matters is that that's something that is a stance that's unnecessary now. And maybe all I really needed was a a definition. But this is one of the examples of this couldn't have happened until now. I just wasn't ready. I had a lot of groundwork to lay. I had a lot of things to put aside, to lay down, to stop worrying over. And you don't do that until they just don't have significance. And things have significance until they can be understood and seen in a bigger light, from a different perspective, from a higher perspective. And once you climb that mountain and you see you can see everything that led to this thing that used to just consume you. And you can look up and see that there's a horizon out there. You know, you can take things in stride and take them in perspective. But that is a shaman's walk. It is. To be able to see in no time, to be in no time, that's a shaman's walk. And it's my walk. And if you're like me, that's just super. And if you're not like me, oh, okay, well, join the club. Just be nice about it, and we'll get along fine. I'll try and be nicer. I realized how freaking territorial I was. Woo! How that came out? Ew, nasty. All right, so learn something else. Oh my. Oh my. That wasn't me either. Ew. I don't like that. I think I'll do something different now. And that's what it's come down to. So I really will end by saying that I see that there has been a progression, and it's really lyrical and beautiful, and kind of course, like, there's a timing to it. But a lot of this started happening in spring of 12. And then by spring of 15, I knew I'd hit a pocket. I felt like contained in this sack of understanding. I just couldn't pierce it. I couldn't go any further in any direction. I just felt, everything was fine. I just felt really like I'm out. I'm tapped. I don't have any new ideas. There's everything's okay, but yeah, I can't go any further with this consciousness. I got to break it open. And I did. I went to see Enrique Boron and studied under him, and whew, holy moly, that was a good thing. But then it did require about 3 years of integration. I had 3 years of just like full on shamanism. And 4 actually. And then woo, baby, whoa, hi. And then about 2 years of just trying to figure this out. What does this mean? Who am I now? What do I do when people take advantage of me, or try and like push me around and think that's okay? And just that's important work. It just is. It is energetic management. And if you run energy like I run energy, if you are not managing your energy, you're in trouble. And you can't manage energy that you're not willing to admit is yours. Power. You can't manage it if you can't admit it's yours. And power is not power over. Power is just, there's a deeper kind of power that can't lie. That is its integrity that is just ancient. That kind of that sort of thrum is very, very available to me now, and that's really, really soothing. I just feel so protected and loved. My ancestors are alive and they walk with me now. I feel so connected. And so not only to the cosmos now, but to the earth. And that was what I was missing. And so the energy is just running a lot smoother for me because there isn't that resistance in my hip. And I've I think, worked through the darkness that I agreed to carry, and the issues I agreed to work through for this work, for my own benefit, for whatever. There was nothing better to do until 2012. Had to do something. So I took care of the crazy people in this lunatic asylum called America. Whatever. Now I'm here, and I'm really glad I'm here. But I'm not what I was then. So, it's inappropriate to hold anxiety about what's going to happen tomorrow. Okay, so I'm being shown in no uncertain terms how to use intentionality, and I'm often surprised at how powerful this stuff is. So I'm really having to manage intention, the energy of intention and will, in a new way, and anxiety free, and in full ownership of the gifts I most certainly am in possession of. So it's a different level of being responsible for my energy, being responsible for my walk, and it really boils down for me to have this very simple appellation: shaman. I like the modern idea of Carlos Castaneda's Don Juan, that shaman. Kind of mischievous, pretty mysterious, always honest. The teachers were. So you can put it back to Thoth, you can put it back to way, way back. You can consider wonderful, wonderful possibilities of our past and of our future. But wow, with this perspective, in this good company, all is well. It is well with my soul. And all good things. Selah.